Hey everybody. I've talked about this before, but now since Worlds Unite is officially since Worlds Unite is officially on the way, or basically has officially started, one question a lot of people have, one person in particular, we're going to call him TA, and you know who I'm talking about, wonders whether or not this is just a little too soon, a little too quick. And some people always wonder if maybe this whole Worlds Unite crossover is nothing more than a cash cow. Something that, yes, it'll attract people's attention, but it's only there to make money and nothing else, and the story itself will suck. Well, I've mentioned already on occasions, in fact in one video, I basically feel that Worlds Unite is nothing more, in my opinion, than a Mega Man X-centric story. Think about it this way. The main villain of the story is Sigma. One of the main characters involved with Sigma as an enemy is Mega Man X. So it only makes sense that it'll be a Mega Man-centric story. But the one problem some people have with the Worlds Unite crossover, and why some, like this individual, feel it's, well, not just a little too soon, and not, given enough breathing time, but also just an instant cash cow, is the inclusion of a lot of other characters from various other video games of the previous, present, and past Sega and Capcom genres. Genres, if you will. Past, present, future, whatever you want to call it. So, that is the ultimate question. Is it a cash cow? Well, you could probably say that what Marvel's doing with their crossover and what DC did with theirs is cash cows. But, who knows? You can't really say. I look at it this way. Worlds Unite, you could look at it as being a cash cow. It's trying to cash in on the success of the last one. But you can also look at it as basically making up maybe for what the last one was. You see, I'm sure Ian Flynn looks and pretty much feels as though the last one was good, was successful, and people liked it enough to warrant a sequel. But he probably knew that a lot of fans weren't happy with the outcome of basically how mainly the only characters involved from both sides were game-related characters. From the Sonic side, you had the Sonic characters. From the Mega Man side, you had the Mega Man characters. But you didn't have any of the exclusives, that are in the comics, that are known for making appearances in the comics or in other forms of media when it involves the two franchises. So Ian Flynn probably thought, you know what, let's make it up to them. Let's do Worlds Unite. We got an extra book to work with right now. There you go. But it's not just that either. People look at the fact that a lot of Worlds Unite is being extended into basically these battle books. That's right, you got these little battle comics that are coming out, basically letting us know what's happening, after we've already seen it happen, or what's happened before it happened, or whatever. And again, this also kind of gets people wondering if this is nothing more than a cash cow. If Archie Comics, along with Sega and Capcom, are trying to make a point. I mean, we know what DC did with their situation. We know what Marvel's planning to do. Is Archie trying to outdo them both with this? By not only having 4 individual comics, span the entire 12-issue arc, or the 12-part arc, but also including these multiple mini-books? Is it nothing more than a cash cow? How to, cash in on the success of what Worlds Collide was and try to cash in on the fact that people love crossovers? Maybe so. And for those of you that are wondering, why do we have to have these battle books? What's the point? We didn't have them before. And that is true. We didn't have the battle books before. But here's why I think it's going on. Here's what I think of it. Here's what I look at it. Like I said, I think Ian Flynn maybe is trying to make up for the fact that Worlds Collide was a success and everything, but didn't live up to what fans were really wanting, but was successful enough to maybe warrant a sequel or a follow-up, years later. Probably not as soon as what it is now, like some fans are pointing out, but still. So when when you look at the battle books, I think this is Ian's way of saying, hey, I'm going to make this even bigger and better than along with everybody else, is going to make this bigger and better than the last one. And again, it might also be Archie Comics' way of trying to say, DC, Marvel, you guys you're focusing more on your movies, your cinematic universes, and all this. Guess what we're doing to make our crossover bigger? Look what we're doing, and you're not doing it. Still, I know it doesn't make sense, but you have to look at it maybe from a business sense that it's probably more Archie, Sega, and Capcom, probably more Archie when it comes to the battle books than it is Sega and Capcom, but then again, who knows? But for those that are wondering, again, if the crossover is cash cow, and maybe it's a little too soon, and maybe it's a little too soon to start doing one, you again, like I said, you could be right, and if you're right, and if that's how you feel, that's your opinion. I look at it like this. I, along with maybe some others, look at it like this, in my opinion. You take a look at the structure of sequels when it comes to movies, right? You take a look at, let's say, take a look at Avengers. Avengers came out in 2012. 2 years later, they were working on the sequel. In about 2 years later, they were working on a sequel, and about 3 years later, here came the movie. Here came Age of Ultron. Now, they are giving it a bigger space and everything when it comes to the next Avengers, because that's going to be bigger, because that's going to be a bigger movie due to the fact it's going to be split into 2 parts. But still, sometimes in movies, a sequel always follows maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years apart from the original. Sometimes it waits an entire decade. Take a look at Independence Day, ID 42. Take a look at that. Almost 20 years since the last one. But then you take a look at movies like, say, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. 2 years later, we're getting another sequel. Take a look at X-Men, Days of Future Past. We're getting another sequel, X-Men Age of Apocalypse. It's all about cashing in on the success of something or the impending success of something. Like, let's take a look at Dawn of Justice. A lot of people may have the criticization of Dawn of Justice, but pretty much that's setting us up to the following sequel, which is going to be Justice League. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And Justice League comes out a year later. So it's not uncommon for something in any kind of media, whether it's movies or even comic books, for a sequel to follow up maybe 2 years, 3 years after the last one. True, a lot of people look at the fact that 3 years maybe is enough time to give us breathing room, and that's fine. While others might felt, hey, you need to simmer it down and let it build. You need to focus more on all the other stories and characters that you have in your books or your movies, and then go from there. I know a lot of people, they'll look at Age of Ultron, and even though it's a huge success, they'll be like, yeah, though it could have been better if they waited maybe another year or two to do it, give us more breathing room, focus on other characters, Well, they're going to give you that breathing room when you get ready for Infinity War in 2018. But like I said, it's not really uncommon nowadays for this to happen. I know when the Transformer movies came out, the original trilogy, before we got the 4th one, which I have not seen yet, but I will. But when we got the original trilogy, it was almost like every 2 years. It's like 2007 we had the first one. which I saw in theaters in Kansas. We had the second one in 2009. We had the third one in about 2011. Now, true, we waited 3 years until we got a fourth one, and that was enough breathing room in the eyes of some. But previously, it was like every 2 years, and it's like, give us some breathing room, right? And that's how some people feel about crossovers in comics sometimes. If a crossover happens 2 years before, and another one's happening exactly 2 years later, some might feel it's a little too much, a little too soon, and you need to give them breathing room. And that's how some people, like this TA and others out there, feel about Worlds Unite. And in addition with the battle books and everything, they feel as though it's a little too much, a little too soon, and that they look at it as being nothing more than a cash cow. Because that's how some people look at sequels that come out 2 years, a year and a half, sometimes 2.5 years, maybe even 3 years, depending on how they feel, as nothing more than cash cows. You're not giving the consumer, you're not giving the viewer or the reader enough time to take it all in, to catch up on the characters, get to know some of the newer characters and the stories and all that. You're not giving them enough time to breathe. And some fans feel as though that needs to stop. But in today's world, you got to look at it this way. Not a lot of studios out there look at it as though fans not having the patience anymore to wait. And that might be the truth. Fans don't have the patience to wait. And this isn't uncommon in comics and in movies either. It's not, because back in the 90s and even the 80s, if there was a sequel coming, that sequel usually came about a year later. It's like the studio knew they had a hit on their hands, and about a year and a half or so later, here came the sequel. I remember when Ninja Turtles, the original movie, came out in 1990, we had no idea a sequel was coming the following year, but it did. True, they waited a year or two before the third one, but still, a sequel came out. And again, like I say, that's saying something. And again, that's might in the eyes be cashing in on something. Excuse me. That might be cashing in on the success of something, of the previous one, which was a success. And, that's about it. It basically is exactly what it is. But, that's exactly what it is. But sometimes the cash cow, the cashing in, I should say, on the success of another doesn't always mean it's going to be bad. Sometimes the story will give you something to enjoy. I remember I walked in, saw Ninja Turtles 2 on the big screen, and I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the elements of it. I really did. I actually enjoyed it. I got a kick out of it. So, when some people look at Worlds Unite and they say it's a little too soon for a sequel to Worlds Collide, they might have a point, and they have all the right to that point. And they might also have a point of saying it's nothing more than a cash cow done by Archie, Sega, and Capcom to cash in on the success of the other one. And that might be true too. And they have a right to that opinion. And I sort of agree with it. It is kind of a cash cow, but I also look at it as being competitive. I mentioned this before in a video I did over here when I was sitting there on this table with my Kindle. I talked about the fact that this being the summer of crossovers, and how I feel that all three companies are competing with each other to see who has the best crossover. Yes, DC's crossover just ended, but now you have Marvel's Secret Wars coming, which is supposed to change everything indefinitely, and now you got Worlds Unite featuring Sonic and Mega Man. And on the side of that, you have a crossover between Dark Horse and Archie Comics featuring Archie and friends meeting Predator. It's like basically trying to see who has the better crossover. It's all about competing, and Archie's competing with themselves when it comes to crossovers, with that crossover with Archie and Predator, but they also have Dark Horse that's sort of helping with that competition as well. But the point is this is the summer of crossovers. And to me, it's basically trying to see who has the better one. And when you take a look at Archie Comics going out and doing what they're doing with Worlds Unite, and then in addition, adding, in addition to the 4 comics that are focusing on the 12-part story arc, if you will, in addition, you're adding in these battle books to try to expand the crossover even more so, make it bigger than it was, live up to what you say, what you proclaimed it was going to be, bigger than ever before. It basically tells me that Archie is trying to prove to the world that, yeah, they may not be on the level at times of a DC or a Marvel, but they are just as good, if not better, when it comes to certain things like crossovers. And that they can do their crossovers not just better, but they can do them bigger. They can have a bigger storyline that not only, encompasses 4 comic book titles, but also has to be expanded into 4 or several different mini book comics known as battle books to kind of explain what's going on outside of the crossover. So I look at it not only possibly as a cash cow, cashing on the success of Worlds Collide, I also look at it as being nothing more than competition and Archie trying to step out of the shadow of DC and Marvel and say, hey, look, you guys may be successful in other ventures and areas and all that, but we're the king of comics. We're the ones that do better crossovers, and we not only do them better, we do them bigger. We go all out, baby. And that's why you have these battle books. It's their way of trying to show that they could do things better and bigger than their competition. And the reason for the battle books, as I was trying to explain earlier, it's kind of like in the veins of what we had with the Iron Dominion arc several years ago. See, several years ago, when Sonic Universe first really started out, one of the first major arcs they had was Journey to the East. And Journey to the East was essentially a 4-issue extension of the Iron Dominion arc. That's right. It was a 4-issue extension of the Iron Dominion arc. Even though at the end of one issue you had Sonic, Sally, and Monkey Kong and Nicole, well, not Nicole, but Sonic, Monkey Kong, and Tails and Sally leave to Journey to the East at the end of one issue, and at the end of the next issue they're back. During that time, even though the comic kind of timetable-wise didn't really work out well, Sonic Universe provided us an extension of it with Journey to the East. So I know it's a strange comparison, but when you take a look at that, and you take a look at what Archie's doing with these battle books when it pertains to Worlds Unite, it's similar. It's a similar vein. It's basically extending the story. And again, this also falls into the category that some people feel it's a little too much, a little too soon. And that it is nothing more than a cash cow. And again, like I said, people have the right to the opinion to feel that way. But like I said, I look at it this way. I look at it as maybe being a cash cow, probably is, but I also look at it as being nothing more than competition on Archie's part to show the people that they live in the shadow of, the companies they live in the shadow of, that they can not only do, crossovers and major story arcs better, but they can do them bigger and more extensive than what the other two can do. So I look at Worlds Unite as it might be too soon. It might have happened a little too soon after Worlds Collide, and it might be a little too much, a little too soon. It may have not given us the breathing room as some people might pertain it should have. But I look at it this way: once it's over with, it's over. And if we do get another one down the line, hopefully it won't happen for another 2-3 years. Maybe we'll get a breather. Maybe you'll get that breather after Worlds Unite. But we'll have to wait and see.